Hello, everyone. Welcome to Avaya's Healthy Aging Curriculum. I am Andy Anderson. My partner Ike Allen and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of Avaya University. Avaya is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Sue Ingebretson, is here today to talk with you about aging does not have to come with increased symptoms. I love this. Sue is a sought-after symptom relief expert in the fibromyalgia, chronic illness, and autoimmune communities. She is known for getting to the root of health challenges, and her methods deliver long-term results using a lighthearted approach without quick fix remedies that only mask symptoms. She is an author, a speaker, a certified nutritional therapist, a clinical hypnotherapist, master NLP practitioner, an integrative nutrition health coach, among many, many other things. So please welcome Sue. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you. And after hearing that, I'm tired.
Like I've been busy.
Right.
So let's dive in. Since you are this expert in the chronic illness field, what is your take on the progression of challenges such as like fibromyalgia, arthritis, really common kind of autoimmune conditions as people are aging?
I absolutely love that question, and here's why. There is a misconception out there that fibromyalgia in particular is progressive, meaning that if nothing changes or you don't do anything, it's getting worse and worse on its own, like it's this monstrous thing in the background that's got this drive to continuously get worse. And that is not the truth. The truth is the body itself does degenerate naturally, but the things that contribute to chronic illness make it do it faster. I know that wasn't very clear. So what it is we are all aging. We are all moving toward a different phase in life, but we have a choice of whether we're going to do it naturally or we're going to do it on overdrive. Let's not move the needle faster than it has to go. Let's not put a rocket booster on rapid aging.
Right.
So the rapid aging are the things that impact our body in a negative way that contribute to chronic illness. So things like, chronic pain, chronic, migraines, all those things that we can trace back to triggers or contributors, poor digestive health, issues with family and environment, toxic elements. There's so many things that can contribute to that. But the key is there's no little thing inside you that because you have fibromyalgia and now it's all of a sudden progressive and taking off. We get to choose all of those factors. We get to mitigate those factors. We get to work with them and change them and even slow them down so that we can have a healthy, normal aging process just like anyone else.
Awesome. I love it. Yes. Don't put that rocket, what'd you say? Rocket booster? What?
Right.
Right.
Like that. I'm thinking Wile E. Coyote lighting the match.
Yes, exactly.
Let's not do that.
Yes, let's age in the natural way. So for people watching right now who do have an autoimmune condition like fibromyalgia or some kind of arthritis or other autoimmune diseases, conditions, how do they manage that? How do they manage those symptoms so that they don't become progressively worse and worse?
The interesting thing about that is it will act and react to whatever it is that impacts you, and because we are each different, we have different things that make it worse for us, but a universal thing would be gut health. And looking at how we, what foods we consume, what things work with us, what things work against us. It's really not all that complicated, that piece of the puzzle. There are other pieces of the puzzle that are bigger, but that piece of the puzzle, and that was where I started with my healing journey. I should say that I was completely incapacitated by fibromyalgia 17 years ago. I thought my life was over. I walked with a cane. I couldn't stand without any kind of support. I was in such horrific whole body pain every morning that you wake up, you're not sure if you're glad. It's a horrible thing. I don't wish it on anyone, and I completely relate to those who have symptoms that are so overwhelming it feels like you can't climb out. And for that, nutrition was my first step, just a teeny tiny step into understanding what it is that my body didn't like. And I would have disagreed. Well, I did it to prove it wouldn't work. So if anybody said, which no one was saying back then, no one was saying that diet had anything to do with anything. But had someone told me that, I would have said, that's silly. That doesn't make any difference. But as soon as I started shifting away from a processed food diet to a natural whole food diet, it's just not that complicated. Didn't know back then I was going, gluten-free, dairy-free, none of those terms even existed back then. I just shifted more toward a healthy, whole, natural diet. I drink water. What a concept.
Right.
Things are really basic. If people are more hydrated, if they're not drinking their calories, if they are eating a whole foods, plant-based diet, it is shocking how the body can react to that. It is absolutely shocking what the body will do. And I saw symptoms reduce right away. Now, pain is one of the biggest, and it's one of the last to come into play, even though we may not notice that as we're creating disease. Pain is one of the last things. There's so many clues ahead of it that we miss. So pain is one of the last things to go away. I have to share that. So when you change your diet, you change other things, that might not be the first thing that goes away. I wish it was, but it's not necessarily. It improved for me, but it took other things getting into place before that shifted for me.
So what are some of those other signs that go away or get better before pain, like for you or other people watching?
There are so many things. People are not aware that their ability to focus is impacted by how your body is functioning, including digestive health. They're not aware of sleep patterns are affected by your body's digestive health. Things like joint pain in a specific place. It could be a small thing. It could be a feeling of swelling in your fingers. I had that a lot. I had a weird thing where one side of my body felt temperature differently than another. I put both hands into a dishwater, and one hand felt like it was burning and the other didn't.
Wow.
So there were pretty big clues that something was not functioning. The communication was not working correctly. But it can be simple things like balance issues. And of course, that's not simple when it becomes, debilitating. But there are a lot of things that tell your body. And of course, your skin is such a huge thing. There are rashes and dryness and patches of problems. And your eyes. Your eyes can say a lot about you. They can say what your health is, what's going on with you. There are just so many cues, and we don't usually see them. But if we're seeing people who are a little bit tuned in, we can become clearer faster on actions that need to be taken or where we need to go.
Awesome. Got it. So like you mentioned gut health, this has been a lot around, right? Gut health, digestive health, and how many different things that can be affected by the health of our gut. So what, you mentioned you did more whole foods, natural, maybe plant-based diet, drink lots of water. What other suggestions might you have for people watching who are either looking to prevent any kind of autoimmune condition or, chronic illness, or are in the thick of something right now as far as gut health goes?
It's really important to figure out what works for you. So there's, the basics. Look at dairy. Dairy's pretty common that it's problematic, and it is, we're looking at things that are higher in sugar. And so that's, a very basic common thing. Obviously, wheat gluten is, and like I said, 17 years ago, nobody was talking about it. Now everyone is talking about it. There's a reason why. So, and the thing is, when we can eliminate things for a time, we can get the body to heal. We may or may not be able to reintroduce later, but that's your journey. That's what you get to figure out. And it's such a wonderful opportunity. So just looking at those two things to start, those are just really basic. Then you can look at other things. I've worked with clients who have a severe issue with cinnamon, for example, or it can be very, healthy things can be problematic for you. So that's what you get to do. And I want to make sure I express that. That's what you get to do, not what you have to do. That's what you get to do to be the best that you can be, to figure out what your body loves and wants and is nourished by. And we'll probably get into this later, but another thing that impacts it is our stress factors. And it's really interesting. I see this over and over. We may have a nutritional food or item that we're super reactive to. And as we do some exploration, we find that that reaction started with a very traumatic event or something that was emotional or something that was going on at the time. So the body then links the two. Right. So we're often reactive to something that we crave or want or do a lot. And so we just need to do a little exploration to figure out what that is.
Yeah. And I definitely want to dive in a little bit to more of like the stress and the, potential trauma that people may have experienced that can create so many things in life. So first thing though, is I want to take a little look at mindset, and you kind of just segued into that nicely with the, I get to, right? I get to figure out what I need to eliminate, or I get to, incorporate new foods that are going to help me, live a healthier life. So like, what's your take on how mood, mindset, negativity and all those kinds of things, and how does that influence really aging as a whole?
It is everything. It is the most important thing. It is the umbrella over the entire world of health. And the reason is, I can say, I could give a 45-minute lecture, worshiping the benefits of fiber. Fiber is your body's amazing go-to nutrient. I could talk about the fiber in celery and broccoli and spinach and kale and all chard, the wonderful things in life. And people are like, blah, blah, blah.
Only us nutrition nerds can really appreciate such things, right?
That's right. So I could talk all day about drinking your water, having adequate fiber in your diet, making sure that you have regular, healthy, wonderful bowel movement, something I talk about a lot. So we could go on about these things, but unless it's important to you, unless it matters, unless you're coming from a place of, and it's not wanting, we all want to get better, a place of knowing the difference between how you think and what your actions are from what you think. Once you get to that place, that's when things shift. So I no longer hand out sheets on what to eat or anything like that. That's just it's not effective. It's not how I work. I want root level change. I want to work with a person, see where their blocks are. What do they believe about food? And food is just a gateway topic. Food is not the be all and end all. But we're talking a lot about it, but it's really this much. It's a gateway topic because people know that there's probably something they want to change about how they eat. But what that tells me is, when we're discussing the food, I want to know what they believe about it. I want to know what they believe is hard. I want to know what they believe is never going to work, so why do it? What do they believe to not be true for themselves? And here's a real biggie. Whenever there's something that we want, but we don't have it, we believe there's something that's really important to us that we have to give up to have it.
Right, like a sacrifice or something.
Yep. If we don't have it already, then there's a belief back there that says we've got to give up something really that I don't want to. I even do, I love tapping. I use EFT tapping all the time, every day. And I even do tapping with clients that says, I don't want to, you can't make me, I'm not going to, not going to happen. Because so many of us have that pushback. And that's great. I want to find out, what's your pushback? Where is it that you're frustrated? Where is it that you believe this, but you want this, and they're in conflict? That cognitive dissonance.
Right.
So those are the things that I love to work with, because my goal is, when I'm working with a client, I don't want them looking at a sheet of paper and following something that I know is not going to be permanent. I want to see change that's permanent at the root level, because they are a different person. And when you become a different person and you believe different things and you understand things from a different perspective, then your behavior is different.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love it. Yeah. And I love your passion about getting to the root cause and the pushback, right? Like, yes, there's a belief. Okay, we can work with that, right?
Right. And that's the thing that used to drive me crazy when I first started this. I thought it was so simple. Do what I did. You do this and you get better. And ignorance. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And when people would follow through, or even not follow through, or worse, do things to sabotage themselves, I was like, why? How could that happen? So that led me into the whole world of the non-conscious mind and the mindset, and understanding all these things, because I wanted to understand how everyone is different.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has different thoughts, different ways they think.
Yep.
And I wanted to know how to approach it in a way that is supportive, helping them learn and moving through it and past it. That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding it.
Yes.
That was a big part for me.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that. So let's get back to stress. So what about what kinds of stress management, I guess, techniques or suggestions might you have for people, and how important is that in our healthy aging journey?
I love that, because it's all about the decisions we make. So everyone, would be likely to say, yes, I know I should eat more fruits and vegetables, and I should blah, blah, blah. Anyone can list 3 things that they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, what gets in the way, and what is it that that we believe is hard or impossible, or we can't have that? And usually stress is an underlying factor to any of those pushbacks. Stress is a factor in there. So there are people that say, I had someone over for lunch, and she had expressed what she wanted. I fixed her lunch. I spent about 20, she was right there in the kitchen with me. I spent about 20 minutes fixing hers. I spent maybe 3 doing mine, threw a few things together. We sat down to eat. She was eating something that is not something I would eat. And I didn't bring it up. I wouldn't. That's not my thing. We didn't discuss that. And she looked at my plate and she said, oh my gosh, it was a salad, spinach salad, and I had some chopped vegetables on it that I already had in the fridge or whatever. And she's like, that is so complicated. I could never eat that. So, right off the bat, you would know there are concerns there about complications. So to her, and we did discuss things later at a different time, she came back to work with me. To her, chopping up vegetables was stressful because she felt she didn't know how to pick it. And what it all came down to is she just felt she was going to be wrong. She thought she was going to pick a fruit at the wrong time, or pick a vegetable at the wrong time. She was going to be told she did it wrong. I was told, so of course comes back to a very critical family. I was told you have to chop things this way. So in order to not be wrong, the belief that it's hard makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we get into stress. What is it that causes you stress about changing or adapting what you eat? What causes you stress, or what makes you feel? And of course, I love the whole somatic approach. Where do you feel that in your body? What does it feel like? How would you describe that? And then we can, from there, identify it, change it, move it, shift it, make it into something different.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that we're trying to pretend isn't important, that's what we need to expand. Right. That's what we need to investigate. So stress is very subversive in that everyone says, well, of course I have stress because everyone has stress, so there's nothing you can do about it. That's the lie. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's a triage tool tapping. That is talking people off the ledge. That's lowering anxiety. I mean, it can be used for everything, by the way, but that is a go-to for those things. Reducing anxiety, figuring out, and it's great for clarity. My stomach is in a knot. I don't even know why. And then as you're tapping, you remember that somebody said something this morning and it really made you mad, but you didn't even take it in.
Right.
Yeah. You pushed it away like it's not important, but then your body said, yeah, it's important. This is bothering me. Right. So tapping is a great tool for that. And then we move into chronic stress. That's always a favorite topic of mine, because chronic stress is going to amplify aging besides symptoms and everything else. So chronic stress, what is it? Is it environmental? Is it relationship? Is it work related? Is it, even a toxic exposure? There are a lot of things that can create this chronic stress. That's where, we can do the triage things for the something that happens. The chronic stress has to be addressed. It has to be identified. It has to be looked at so that it could be changed or accepted. Sometimes there are things that happen that we just have to accept, change our reaction to it. And that is the kind of the real muddy middle ground, most of it. And then we can just come out of it, the other side, feeling like we have the tools. We need to know that we're capable, we're all capable, but that we know what that stress is, we know what that's doing to our body, and we have the tools to shift it, change it, alter it, or accept it. It's not just, pretend and it'll go away.
Right. So we were talking before we started this interview about trauma, childhood trauma in particular, and how that's a big passion of yours as far as helping people through that now. How often do you see this chronic stress linked back to a childhood trauma or a trauma from, younger years, that kind of stuff?
I would say 100% of the time.
There you go. Yeah.
And here's the interesting thing. We think when we talk about trauma that it has to be something sensational. There is such a wide spectrum of trauma. And I've had clients who have, we're all talking about the ACEs study, adverse childhood events, very common, very linked with fibromyalgia and other chronic health challenges, even moving into the autoimmune realm, a lot more understanding how that works. And when we look at trauma, it's how your body reacted, what you believe to be true, what you shut out of the potential or possibilities of life for you. That's where that trauma had an effect. And trauma is not always something sensational. So I will work with clients who've had, horrific abuse and things that happen to them regularly, things that happened once. And I give this example because there is a client who just had such an anger facade, and you knew that there, were issues. And after working together, and it's not like I'm sitting there investigating, those things, they come up through the regular work of working on nutrition or working on other things. They come up when they need to and when it's a safe place to do so. And what she shared is that she was 15 and in a hallway where an older boy didn't let her pass, and he was going to take her purse. And it's awful. She was afraid. She was in a public place, lots of people, and she felt every bit as threatened as if she was completely alone and isolated somewhere else. So there is absolutely zero judgment on what the body interpreted the event to be.
Right.
So traumas are just a really wide spectrum. They could be seeing your parents fight in your 3, and your body is agitated at the sound of pots and pans, So those things are really important. And the interesting thing is, about a lot of my work in relaxation methods, we are not digging into incidences. We're looking at the body's reaction and we're shifting that. We don't have to go into and remember or certainly not relive anything. We're looking at the body's reaction to whatever is going on, shifting that and giving it space so that it has something to say, so that we have a voice. That's what we're doing. We're giving a voice to what the body wants to share. And when it doesn't have a voice, we're going to have symptoms. We're going to have rapid aging. We're going to have other issues.
Yeah, you're reminding me of this, something I've become aware of in the last, I don't know, maybe 6 months or something, particularly in doing so much stuff at Avaya around trauma. I have this somatic reaction when like a cabinet door is like not even slammed, but just like closed more loudly, or a car door is closed more loudly. Like I notice it and I'm like, wow, like, I mean, like just that it's fascinating. And I don't consider myself to have had this overly traumatic childhood. I did have an alcoholic father and that was traumatic, but a lot of it was, really more mild, I guess I would say. So just those little things and how it carries through right, your life. And I'm like, wow, like it's just such an interesting reaction that I have to, and just noticing it, right? Noticing it in those moments, okay, well, there it is again, right? There that cabinet door went again. There that car door went again. Interesting, right? So.
Well, but see, you just said something so powerful. You notice it and you say, interesting.
Right.
Because you are advanced and do all this work and have, moved here. Usually when that happens, we're so unaware of it that our body is, to me, it's a launch sequence. We'll hear, smell, see, take in information that hasn't even gotten here yet. We'll experience that. And then the body creates the launch sequence. It says, okay, that equals fear, terror, I'm not safe, whatever the message is. And then we have the amplified respiratory system. Then we have a compromised digestive system. Then we have the cognitive problems because we can't focus because the body is in that fight, flight, freeze response. So that launch sequence happens before we ever have a chance to think about it. So that is a really important distinction, is that it's great when we can get to where we can see the trigger, we can see the issue, and just view it with complete objectivity. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, right. Oh, wow, look at that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, no.
And even, moving through that, we can get to the place where we can really look at it and figure out what it's from and move on, and then those things won't even have an impact.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I love that. I appreciate you diving more into the trauma piece, because once, so many of us, just like you're saying, right, it doesn't have to be this catastrophic event or some event that even on the, right, even the ACEs, score and like all these like major kinds of things, or what people might perceive as more major things, can be what might be perceived as a small thing, but is still carried with you. So I think that's so important. So.
And when you're 3 or when you're 2, or, especially nonverbal, the body just has a reaction. That's it. And so then later it'll make up a story to fit that reaction. But at the time, it just has the reaction.
Yeah. Got it. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate this. This has been an awesome conversation. And I want to make sure you get a chance to talk about your gift, which ties right nicely in with this conversation of stress management and all of that. So could you share about what that is? And everyone watching, there is a button below that you can click on to head over to Sue's site to grab that.
Thank you so much. I write about stress a lot. That is a huge topic. And I created a course called Stress Less, and feeling more zen than zombie. And it's a 5-module course, and I'm giving away the first 3 modules. So in those 3 modules, you will discover what type of stress you have, how it impacts your body. There are questionnaires and quizzes and facts in those first 3 modules that give you a lot of information about stress and how it impacts you, and especially, are you dealing with acute stress, chronic stress? How does that work for you, and what is it doing to you? So it's really important to understand. So I'm really grateful. I'm happy to have people hop on my free course, and then let me know if you have questions or whatever. My website is Rebuilding Wellness. You can always contact me there. And for more information about this entire mindset, I would like to share my newest book is called Get Back into Whack.
Mm.
And it's all about jumping into the shift that I want to change from where I am now to something better. And the way to do it is we have to change how we think. We have to change how we feel, because when we do that, then the actions are easy.
I love it. Get back into whack.
And I'm not even, I'd have to read it myself. How to easily rewire your brain to outsmart stress, overcome self-sabotage, and optimize healing from fibromyalgia and chronic illness.
Excellent. Yeah, let's see it. Oh, nice. Perfect. I love it. Thank you. Well, we'll have a link to that below too then. So people can check out your gift as well as your new book. And are there any last insights? Anything else you want to share before we hop off?
I would. And I'm glad you brought that up, because early on, two quick things.
Sure.
Early on, I was trying to figure out what the heck, I didn't know what I had. It took me 15 years to get a diagnosis. Once I'm the one who figured it out and said, I believe it's fibromyalgia, there was nothing online about it. There was no, we're talking almost 20 years ago. And one very weird thing I found wasn't about fibromyalgia, but because I was reading clinical studies or white papers or whatever, because at a university library, I had access to this stuff. I just found the word fibromyalgia in it. And what it was is a 35-year-old woman had been in a car accident, had an autopsy, and they were perplexed that her internal organs and her body looked closer to being 80 than 35. And she did have fibromyalgia. So at the time, I was like, how are these related? And I felt so validated because I felt so old, so 180 is what I used to always say. I feel like I'm 180. And that was so validating to me. And in my negative mindset at the time, I really felt that an autopsy would be the only way I would get validated for how bad I felt.
Oh.
And that really struck me.
Mm-hmm.
And that propelled me into this whole journey. It started with the aging issue, but it was about why does the body rapidly age? And fibromyalgia, how is it linked? And I read an article from Mercola, and it really started the whole path. And he wrote 4 things for rapid aging: sugar, over sun exposure, we all need some, but over sun exposure, and for women in particular, smoking and alcohol. I would add to those 2 things. I would add to those 4 things: stress, mindset, belief, negativity, what we believe to be true, all those yummy, wonderful topics. And then body movement, in especially being sedentary, because sedentary will also amplify aging if we're not active, if we're not moving in some way. And that's a big issue for me, because I'm a writer and researcher, and I can have 8 hours go by and I haven't moved. So I really work hard at that. So those are things. And of course, back then they were talking about sugar. We now know every processed food has added sugar or issues with it. So that's just a huge factor there. And of course, water, hydration. But if we could make changes or shifts, we're not talking about wiping out and making your life a completely different thing. It's the little steps. If we can change drinking more water, if we can change shifting toward a more natural whole diet, getting in that great fiber, if we can move the body, if we can get some sun exposure and not have the overexposure or whatever. And of course, alcohol and cigarettes are something that's for another topic, another day. But I just wanted to bring up that those things are directly linked to rapid aging. So we're talking healthy aging, then that's pretty clear what to do, what to avoid.
Awesome. Thank you. I love that. Yeah. I appreciate you putting your personal story as well in the end here, and, just highlighting that again for people. I think that's so helpful. And I love that. That's a really amazing insight you had. So thank you.
It's hard when you're in it. You're in a deep well. And when you're in it, it is hard to process, to understand, to figure out. And it's not that I ever went through why me. I wanted to know why it happened. That's how I wrote my first book, Fibromyalgia. Why did it happen? And what was at the root? And of course, I did figure that out, and I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for the whole experience. I'm grateful I had it. There's no way I would have listened or figured things out any other way. I'm a natural-born researcher, and it shifted all of my research into, health and wellness. And of course, I'm just off and running and grateful for the journey.
Beautiful. Thank you. I so appreciate you. And thanks for doing this with us, Sue, today. I appreciate your time and your expertise and everything.
You betcha. Thank you so much. And I just can't wait for listeners to hear this and know that there are things that they can do, and know that there's a path that is out of the direction. You can change your trajectory, even just a few degrees, and you can find yourself in a completely different space 6 months, a year, 5 years from now.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Sue. And thank you everyone for tuning in, for showing up for yourself on this healthy aging journey. And we will see you again real soon. Take care.